My next guest is Holly Stuart. Holly Stuart is the education specialist for Foldscope Instruments and former 8th grade science and design teacher in South Carolina. Her passions include finding new and innovative ways to provide access to scientific tools to students everywhere, because she knows that when students have access to the wonders of science, they can discover new scientific concepts through inquiry and learn science by doing science. In addition to her out-of-the-box approach to teaching science, Holly successfully implemented the grid method into her teaching practice and is currently a Teach Better Team mentor ambassador. Holly's married to her high school sweetheart and is a mother to 3 children. When not working, she enjoys traveling and being outside with her family. Some of their favorite outdoor activities include hiking, running, biking, and gardening. Her indoor hobbies include reading, writing, and learning more about sketchnoting and drawing. Welcome to the podcast, Holly.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
So we've been connected for a while, and we met at the Teach Better conference in October. And so we'll be talking a little bit about some of the things that you've been doing for the team. But tell me, first of all, a time when you were in the trenches and managed to crawl out.
I think that, unfortunately, I think that as teachers, that everyone has one of those in the trenches kind of moments. I know that for me, it's actually the thing that led me to the Teach Better team. So it was a year when I was teaching in 8th grade in middle school. And I had a section, there was one of my sections that I could not figure out how to be able to reach all of the students in this one class. There was quite a variety of learning levels, even the language barriers. I had several students in that class who spoke no English, that they had just moved to South Carolina and, put into the schools. And so it was trying to find support for everybody. And it was really burning me out because I was trying so hard to reach everybody that I really, at the end of, when I really stopped to think about it, I kind of didn't reach anybody because I was trying so hard to just do something. And so I had a colleague who said, you know what, because I was frustrated, and I was honestly, I think at that point I was thinking I can't do this whole education thing. Mm-hmm. I need to just walk away. I need to find something else, because if I can't be there for my students and give them what they need, somebody else needs to come in here and do it, because it just, it wasn't fair to anybody. But I had a colleague who, luckily, she saw the basically how low I really was. And she said, you know what, we need to figure something out. And so she introduced me to the Teach Better team. She said, there's this group on Facebook that I want you to follow, and I want you to read this book. And she gave me the book Teach Better, which, if you're familiar with it, that is the book that really describes Chad Ostrowski, the founder of Teach Better. It really describes his creation, his journey that led to the creation of the grid method, which he used in his classroom. And so I read the book, and I was just like, this is exactly what I needed. I really needed to not just have someone to commiserate with and say, oh gosh, yeah, I'm so sorry, that's really tough. I needed an actual strategy that I could use. And that was the first time that I felt that something was given to me that I could actually take it and put it in place and run with it. And I did. And it was honestly one of the greatest things greatest decisions that I made in my classroom, because when I when I started using the grid method, I had a strategy that let me reach the kids who knew the content, or at least had a basic understanding of it, and were ready to go and try something with it and apply it. But I could also at the same time reach my students who had never heard of any of these words before and the vocabulary associated with the content. And I could get everybody working on something that had everyone learning. And it was that class, it just did a complete 180 for me. And I was on fire again, and I was ready to go because I had something that actually worked. And I used it in all of my sections, not just that one class. And all of my students really thrived using the grid method.
For people who aren't aware of the grid method, if you can just talk a little bit about how you implemented that into your science teaching.
Yeah, so the way that the grid method works is it's based on Webb's depth of knowledge. So you have different levels that you create assignments or tasks for your students to work on, all related to the same content, but you might have a student who's starting off at level 1 who needs that basic recall type of information. So you're just kind of practicing the vocabulary words, doing activities that get them familiar with some of the basics of the content. Level 2 is a little bit deeper, where you're going more into, and I apologize, my printer just turned on for some reason.
Okay.
So level 2 would be more, your students know the vocabulary words, they kind of understand what the concepts mean, but it lets them start to apply it, and it lets them actually use that science content. And then level 3, again, you're going deeper into it. So it just helps you to be able to keep everyone working on the same content, but
Okay.
at different levels. And it's a great thing because students can also help each other too. So if you have a student who's on level 2 or 3, and they see that the person sitting next to them is having trouble with a level 1 exercise, well, they can help them. So it gives them that sense of ownership and that sense of, pride in their ability to be able to, not only do the lessons for themselves, but to help their peers, which also helps them learn it more, because teaching is the best way to learn something. So
Mhm. And you said also, as a science teacher, you did some informal science outdoors with field trips. So talk to me about what you help students discover outdoors.
yeah, so before I actually got into a classroom teaching setting, I had started off in the world of education with informal education. So I worked, I had two different positions that I had been in, but basically it was field trips where students from the surrounding school districts would bring their students to a location, whether it was, through the woods or to the river or to one of the gardens and the parks that we have around town. And I would teach the students science, but the classroom was the outdoors.
Okay.
So when we went down to the river, we were doing water quality analysis by actually having the kids put on the little, the boots and everything. We were walking out in the river, turning over rocks, and we were doing macroinvertebrate surveys. So we were actually looking at the critters that were swimming around in there. And there's a lot that you can find if you go out, take your hand, stick it in the water, flip over a rock. There's all kinds of stuff that's, crawling on the bottom of those rocks. And those can be indicators of how healthy the water is. So we would do things like that. We also looked at the aspects of like weathering, erosion, and deposition. When we were walking through walking on trails through the woods, you'd be able to see very clear evidence of soil that had been weathered and eroded away. I was able to teach how the plants and the roots of the trees help to keep the soil intact. And you could see the areas where there weren't any plants, that soil had been washed away, but the areas where there were plants, that the soil stayed there. So it was helping them to, again, see that content in the real world around them. So giving them that experience with it.
Yeah, definitely the hands-on, and it's good to have partnerships with outdoor ed companies that have specialists available to walk kids through kind of those discoveries.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you definitely get a lot more kind of seeing that in person than just watching a video or looking at pictures, right? So
Exactly. Exactly. And the kids had such a good time on these trips
yeah,
too, because there were the time, it was a lot of kids, this was their first time, like walking through the woods,
yeah,
and they have more of a feeling of apprehension when it comes to being outside, because there's that fear of the unknown. Oh, I don't like the bugs, or I don't like the spiders, or you know what I mean? There's
yeah.
all that kind of, oh, I don't want to go out there. But once they saw me having fun with it, it kind of helped to trickle down to them, and then they would have fun with it. And then, so it was just this big snowball effect that everyone enjoyed themselves, which made the learning a lot easier because it wasn't so stressful.
So you left the classroom this past June. You transitioned to your current role as education specialist for Foldscope Instruments. So Tell me a little bit about what Foldscope is and how teachers can use those instruments in their classes.
Okay, so first of all, I just have to say Foldscopes are amazing. In my completely unbiased opinion, because I said that even before I started working for the company. But the basic premise behind the company of Foldscope is it's a company that the flagship product is, and I'll hold it up right here. This is a Foldscope. It is a paper microscope. And a lot of times people will look at this and they'll say, that is not a microscope. So if you can see, I have on my lab bench behind me, I have an actual microscope that's up there. That's what people think of when they think of what a microscope is. But this is a microscope too. And the inventors of the Foldscope, their whole kind of like the whole idea that they had behind it was they wanted to make scientific equipment that was something that was able to be used by anybody. They didn't want to have that, that barrier to access. The problem that we saw a lot of with with COVID in schools was that issue of equity. There was a lot of people who had what they needed, were great, and everything was fine, but the people who were really struggling and didn't have access, it was more of a problem. And we've seen this for a long time, especially in science classrooms. And I'm not saying that other content area teachers don't have their own struggles. Just from my personal experience in science classrooms, it is hard to be able to come across equipment that you can have for these giant classrooms. I had one class one year that had 32 kids. There's no way that I could have had 32 microscopes for my students to be able to use. But for something like this, you certainly could. So it was started by Manu Prakash, who was a professor at Stanford. He's still at Stanford. And one of his graduate students, Jim Sobalski. And the two of them, and was really with the whole group, but Manu basically said he charged his research group with the objective of coming up with a microscope that was something that you could use in the field. It did not require any kind of electricity and no extras or anything like that. He wanted something that would work, that was easy to use too, because there's also that intimidation factor that a lot of times people have with scientific equipment. Oh, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to break it. All these little knobs and buttons. I don't know what everything does. And then also to make it something that was affordable, because that's the other thing too with scientific equipment, it's expensive. So he basically said, I want all of those things, but I don't want it to be a watered down version, something that, yeah, it's great. It's something that everybody can have, but it doesn't work really well. He wanted it to be also something that was high quality. So with that group, what they did was they came up with this. And the thing that is wonderful about it is it's made out of paper. So you can see I'm sitting here bending it and everything. So it is completely made out of paper. There are, I won't go through all the different parts of it, but it has all the parts of a microscope on it. They look different, but all the parts of a microscope are on it. And it's folded up. So you put it together origami style, but you hear that little click there. It's held together by magnets so that that you can take it, and you can shake this thing and the slide isn't going to fall out or anything like that. So it's going to be just fine the way that it is. And with it, you're able to actually get 140 times magnification, which, when you think about a normal, like a lab bench style microscope, you can get anywhere between usually 40 and 400. So this is, right there in the middle, giving you that 140 times magnification. And you can use it straight out of you can use it just like this. So I do have a slide that's in here, and I'll show you what it is. So you're able to see that that's a leaf. So it uses just regular, you can either use glass slides or you can use paper slides even. So if you have little kids that you're working with and you don't want them, using glass, you can use paper slides as well. And so when you put your slide in there, it gives you these amazing images. And there's some other features that are with it too, that it lets you. So you can use this and you can look through this and you'd be able to see the leaf magnified. You can see the cells in the leaf. I'm gonna, because we're on a video, I have an artificial light that lets me do
Okay.
this. You can also hook your phone up to it, which is a
Okay.
wonderful thing, because when you're looking at stuff, the thing that everybody's like, oh, that's so cool. And then everybody wants to be able to see it, but you can only look one person at a time. So I've just got another magnet on the back of my phone. So you can see my Foldscope, shaking it off. It's not moving or anything.
Mhm.
It lets you see it. And then if you blow up your screen, so you can see those cells that are in the leaf. So, and again, it's something that you can, it helps you to be able to share it with everybody. Everyone can look at it. If you've got something that's swimming around, you can
Mhm.
record it swimming around and moving around. And
Neat.
it's a lot of fun. Yeah. Yeah. So this is my new area of passion that,
Mm.
having this as a tool to be able to get into the hands of kids
Mhm.
is really something that means a lot to me, because in my classroom, I was the one who, I liked to say that my classroom was controlled chaos. Kids were moving around, everybody was doing stuff and doing different things all at the same time. So I was very hands-on and very much an advocate for getting tools into the hands of kids. And this is a great way to be able to do that. And it does
Mhm.
it in a very what's the word I'm looking for? It's not scary. It's not intimidating. It's just something that this is really cool, but it's an actual real piece of scientific equipment, so it's giving you the best of both worlds.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and that's definitely something that is affordable if teachers want to
Mhm.
buy those for their classrooms. And you provide training, you said, often via
Mhm.
Zoom or some districts in your area you'll travel to. But I know you did a breakout session at the Teach Better conference. And so definitely people can reach out to you. We'll talk about where to find you online at the
Mhm.
end. But yeah, I think it's a neat tool. Like you said, it's really, when we're talking about equal access and something that kids can take. Do you recommend teachers to let kids take that home, especially if they're wanting to look for things outside the classroom? Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the things that I really like about this is that, and again, I didn't even talk about the price point of it, but Manu's goal was to have something that cost about $1 was his ultimate goal. And this Foldscope that you're looking at right here,
Mm-hmm.
it's $1.75 is the
Okay.
cost of parts and everything for making a Foldscope. So it is very affordable. And I like to think of it as in the same way that you wouldn't go into a classroom and, you wouldn't stop a child from taking home paper and pencils and crayons and other things that they need to be able to do their work. I wouldn't want to stop a student from being able to take home a piece of science equipment that lets them take the science out of the classroom and be able to have those real world experiences with it. I mean, I think we've all been, somewhere like, what is that? It's something that's really, really tiny. And I wish I could see what that really looked like. And this gives kids a way to be able to do that, not just in the classroom under the direct supervision of a teacher, but
Mm-hmm.
imagine all the things that kids could come up with to do with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's so exciting to think of how kids light up when they're looking at things, and it
Mm-hmm.
opens up a new world for them. So in the bio, I talked about you being a Teach Better mentor ambassador. So this is a program the Teach Better team opened up in 2020. And as of recording, they have the ambassador application open, but that'll be closed by the time this episode comes out. But usually it opens up once a year. So tell me a little bit about what your experience has been like as a Teach Better ambassador. I know they have 12-hour lives, so they have one coming up around the time this episode will be out. So kind of what is your role, and how have you been connected, and just things that you've done as an ambassador?
Yeah. So like I said, I got connected with the team through my trenches experience in the classroom. And really it was 2020 when everything was shutting down and teachers were just scrambling like crazy to try and figure out what can we do, to still keep teaching and reaching our students while we have all of these barriers that are up. And I did not apply the first time that they had the first round of ambassador applications. I had the moment that everybody has it, that moment of, self-doubt and, oh, I don't know, I'm new to this whole teach better thing, and I don't have a ton of experience with the grid method. I just know I've done it in my classroom, but I still stayed connected with them. So I was watching the daily drop-ins that they started doing when everything shut down in March of 2020. I started joining in, because I was an active participant in those, they had invited me to be on. So I've been live with the team several times. I've been on the daily drop-ins. I've done when Jeff and Dave were doing the brain breaks on Wednesday nights. I joined in with them a few times. I also did participate in one of their 12-hour lives. So, just doing a lot of things like that helps you to connect with other teachers and to be able to, it's a great program because it helps you to become a better teacher, because you've got, access to all of these amazing educators with all these ideas and strategies. And it also helps you to get your voice out there and help others to become better too, because, there's a reason why everyone has a gift. There's a reason why we got into the world of education, right? And we always joke around and say it was definitely not for the fame and the fortune. There's gifts that we all have that we bring to our classrooms. And you never know, your gift might be just the thing that somebody needs who's, not just in another district, but another state, across the country or something like that. Yeah. And through the Teach Better team and the ambassador program in particular, I've found that they've helped me to amplify my voice. And then I've been able to also help others amplify theirs. Yeah. So I did decide the second time they had the opening for the ambassador applications, I did send in my application and I became an ambassador, and I've been blogging with the Teach Better team as well. I think it was because of the fact that I became one of the ambassadors. I was like, yeah, maybe I should try to start blogging, and again, just you have this voice, you have this message. It's a great way to be able to, to put it out there. And then after doing that, I said, you know what, when they opened up for the lead and the mentor ambassador part of the program, I was like, okay, maybe I should do this. And it was funny because I had been toying with it, but then I decided in May, like you said, I left the classroom to start working for Foldscope. And I had actually reached out to Ray and Megan and Andrea, and I was like, I don't know if I should still be an ambassador because I'm no longer in the classroom. And that's where they, made it very clear that the ambassador program is not just for classroom teachers. It is for anyone who is involved in any way in the world of education. And because of the fact that I still do work with teachers and I'm still creating content for teachers, they're like, there's no reason why you should not be, an ambassador, and there's no reason why you shouldn't apply to be a mentor. So I did, and I'm now one of the mentors. And like you said, I know that when we're recording this, the new ambassadors have not been selected yet, but hopefully by the time this airs, I will have I'll be a mentor ambassador for some of the new people who are joining in.
Yeah. And it's excited. It's like kind of passing the torch, or, sharing your wisdom and knowledge. I know every day there's new people discovering the Teach Better team. I just watched, so I usually catch those live streams after the fact, but I was watching the Sunday broadcast, and they were talking with somebody who was in college, Dre.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And just, having people on that are not even finished with their education program in college, but really, he has a podcast and talking about how, he's really connecting with educators and doing things just as a college student. So, it's a lot of us are pretty experienced educators, but when we're also connecting those who are new to the field, it's a great feeling. You did mention a little bit about your blogging for Teach Better Team. So I think you said you had a Teach Better blog, because some people, I just blog whatever comes to heart, and I don't have like a specific theme. They just post my blogs, but I know you and some others I've had on the podcast have like a theme. So You said
Mhm.
mostly you do science better. So talk to me about
Ye-
maybe an article that you're writing. I know you also do Foldscope blogs as well.
mhm. Yeah, so the whole writing thing, I started off and I just kind of wrote a couple of blogs for them, and they had a science kind of theme to them because I'm
Yeah.
writing about what my experience is in, and so my experience is science. And so then I was like, you know what, I need to do, because they're always encouraging people to have that series, do a blog series, have it come out once a month, and it helps you to really do that reflecting of those best practices. Because if you have to write about it, you've got to intentionally think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh, okay, how about we do science better? So, going along with the whole Teach Better theme. And so I've had my blog with the Teach Better team for over a year now. It's called Science Better. And it's a combination of things. Some of them are things that I have done directly in my classroom, that's something that worked really well for me. And I was like, I need to tell other people about this. And some of them are a little more like bigger picture kind of things, for just thinking in terms of best practices. One of the ones that really comes to mind was a two-parter that I did. I was a big proponent, and still am, of interactive science notebooks.
Okay.
I think that those are so important for students to have. It teaches them so many skills beyond just learning the science. And every year I made, little tweaks to it, little tweaks, and I got better and better and better. And I was like, I don't want someone who's new to this to have to go through all of those years of iterations of a
Yeah.
science notebook, like I had to. I'd rather just put together the list of things that worked for me, and the explanation of why, not just because sometimes you get like those checklists. It's like, don't use markers, use pens, don't use glue, use tape, whatever, kinds of things. And what I did was I said, okay, here's what worked for me and here's why. So that way, if you have a different situation with your students, you can say, okay, well, I can see why this worked for Holly, but for me, I'm going to go with this because da 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 da. Or maybe you're like, you know what, my classroom sounds like the same kind of thing that Holly had. I'm going to go with what she recommended and see how it works for me. That was one of the ones I think that was a great one to put out there, because again, hopefully, and if you haven't read it and you want to go back and find it, it's in the Science Better series, but hopefully that'll save people a lot of like frustration and everything that I had gone through in the beginning, to be able to start off at a better place, to be able to continue getting better from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's great to be able to kind of tap into those resources for people
Mhm.
that have questions, like you said, topic-based questions, science better,
Yeah.
or school culture is something I've written on a lot, or
Mhm.
connecting with families and other stakeholders. So people could just kind of search when they go to
Right.
teachbetter.com/blog, and they can kind of search in the toolbar what type of blog they want to look for. So
And believe me, you will find every possible topic imaginable in there. There's so many great blogs.
yeah, yeah. And something you do for Foldscope as well, you write a little bit, you talk about maybe the next generation science standards,
Mhm.
a little bit about people's understanding of that. For the teachers, that's a part of the role that you have as well.
Yeah.
So did you want to talk a little bit about how often those blogs come out? And is that something people have to be a member of the Foldscope, or be a subscriber? How do they access Foldscope
Yeah.
blogs?
Yeah. So I have two blogs that I'm currently writing. As of right now, I have two blogs that I'm writing for Foldscope. One of them is called Foldscope in the Classroom,
Okay.
and it has lessons that you can take, and um, it gives you a topic and talks about, gives you the procedure for the demonstration or the activity.
Mhm.
And it does, of course, tie in a Foldscope. And I'm trying to get with that one, I'm trying to help expand people's perceptions of a microscope as being only a biology tool for when you're studying cells.
Okay.
I really want people to understand that it's a scientific tool that can be applied in so many other ways. So I had written one last month I guess to be specific, in October, put it that way, because we don't know when this is coming out. But in October, I wrote one that was all about convex lenses. So
Okay.
it was talking about optics and, the electromagnetic spectrum and wave properties, but it was using a microscope to do it. And so just teaching different ways that you can, use a different concept in science, but see if there's a way, because again, this is a tool that you can have out all the time, the same way you do a pencil and paper. Use the tool. There's a lot of different creative ways to do it. So I'm trying to help teachers to be able to expand their horizons with scientific tools. So that's Foldscope in the classroom, and that comes out once a month. And then I also have another blog that I'm writing called Foldscope Explores. And that one is kind of covering more of a variety of topics. It can be anything science related. It is not specifically related to microscopes.
Okay.
I just did one because the one that just actually published yesterday, or I guess on Monday, the 21st, was all in preparation for today, which, by the way, is Fibonacci Day. It's November 23rd. The Fibonacci sequence is the series of numbers that you get the next number by adding the previous two numbers together.
Okay.
So when you start it, it's 1, 1, 2, 3. So 11/23, November 23rd. So that's the origins behind Fibonacci Day. But I just wrote a Foldscope Explores all about the Fibonacci sequence, and finding that you might have seen like those spirals that are shown. I'm actually wearing my Fibonacci necklace, but it's
nice.
the little spirals that grow exponentially and get bigger. But you can find that pattern all around you in the outdoors. So, it kind of gave ideas for where you could go to find it, where you could look for it, how you can create that spiral and stuff like that. So again, that one comes out twice a month.
Okay.
But it's on those kind of like bigger picture kind of science topics and things like that. So, and you don't have to like create an account or anything like that to be able to access the blogs. They are on our Foldscope website. And so when you click on it's just www.foldscope.com. And there's different links on there, and one of them is to the blogs, and you'll be able to see them there. So anybody can read them. And we do, I try to promote them on social media too, to make sure that people are seeing them.
Okay, great. I'll definitely include that in the show notes. Well, we've had a great conversation today about your role as a science educator, how you've used the grid method, how you stumbled upon the Teach Better team and started using the grid method in the classroom, and now your role as a specialist for Foldscope Instruments. Out of everything we talked about, what's one thing you'd like listeners to remember?
I think that for me, my big thing is that I don't just want people to learn about science. I feel we need to have a scientifically literate society, but I don't want people to just learn about science. I want people to get out there and do science. So I would love for there to be for teachers to find more ways to be hands-on in their classroom, so that your students are doing science, not just reading about it.
Yeah, that's really important to remember. Like we said, get out there, explore.
Yes, absolutely.
Where can people connect with you and find you online?
Sure. So my email is, if you have any questions at all about Foldscope, I am holly@foldscope.com. So that's nice and easy to be able to find me there. And then I'm very active on Twitter, and I am at Holly A. Stuart. And so for those of you who are listening, it is Stuart, because people get confused on the spelling of Stuart, but yeah, it's at Holly A. Stuart on Twitter is a great place to connect with me. Follow me. If you have any questions, you can DM me. I post lots of pictures of my microscopic discoveries on there too. So you can see all the wonderful things you can discover with a Foldscope.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the Out of the Trenches podcast today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you too.